Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be part of this distinguished group of panelists. I did not have the honor to be in the flotilla, but allow me to send you a lot of regards and salutes and a lot of appreciation for your bravery from the people of Egypt. I come from Egypt, and there's a lot of support, and I was asked to deliver this message of appreciation to you, especially with regards of our very evil government, I have to say. So there's a lot of resistance, and coming here, there was a lot of inspiration for me to see the support of the people of Malaysia and the government. And that gives us inspiration when we go back home to stand in front and to try to push our government, especially the government of Egypt, to change its policy regarding Gaza, opening the border, and basically to stop its collusion with the Zionist state. Also, what I actually really like to say today is, especially after hearing the testimony, I got the same feeling that I got when I first heard about the flotilla. It's a mix of anger, but also very desperate feeling, and really losing hope and feeling specifically handcuffed. And that's the feeling that I got today as well. But these stories of bravery, it reminds us, and it reminds me that there's so much change that happened in the last couple of days. There is an iron will that emerged around the world to make change, and to make change happen. And that's specifically what I want to talk to you tonight, is to really show you how the world is changing and how the world is uniting and saying we are no longer accepting an apartheid entity in our world. So I have the honor to speak, give you an idea about Viva Palestina Malaysia. Viva Palestina Malaysia was founded right after the brutal war in Gaza in 2009, and it's basically a coalition of NGOs, right now approximately 50 NGOs, who have a very clear vision. We have to make change ourselves. It's an idea of we have to make pressure, we have to do advocacy, and we have to raise awareness. And the clear vision is that we have to work towards a just, equitable, and sustainable resolution to create a free, independent Palestinian state. Viva Palestina Malaysia has given inspiration to a lot of NGOs around the world, because it was very clear that this has to be multi-ethnic and multi-religious groups, that this is the time where we have to unite all together. So the Viva Palestina Malaysia is one of the biggest groups which contributed to the convoy that was sent to Cairo last year. And they had to face the very oppressive Egyptian government, but they did it with so much bravery. So this is part of the international work that Viva Palestina Malaysia is doing. But even here at home, it's working very importantly on awareness raising. So what is actually the Palestinian occupation? And I'm not saying conflict, I'm saying occupation, because it's a very unique political analysis. So the awareness raising was a very important point in uniting the people and making people understand what is this occupation actually about. They also understood that one of the most effective ways to stand in front of the Zionist system, the Zionist regime, was to boycott. And I'm going to talk to you tonight of what boycott actually is. But you have very inspiring attempts and very inspiring work done here by Viva Palestina Malaysia, doing walkabouts. So, for example, targeted giving people information about boycott, why this company should be boycotted, how this company is actually contributing to the Zionist imperialist plans. So they were very successful attempts. They were just last week. I had the honor to be with them in front of Bukit Bintang. McDonald's was being targeted as one of the biggest companies which is contribution to the Jewish National Fund. So it was quite interesting. We went inside McDonald's and started harassing people, but it was a very successful attempt as well. They went to Sunway Lagoon, they went to Sha'anan, and were able to really, not providing the answers, but making people think. This is itself, and it's enough. That we have to, the time has come that we have to make very conscious decisions on what we buy. And every small decision like this is affecting very, very, very bigger political reality. And this is what VPM was very much working on. I'll also, moving from here, I'd like to contextualize, to put VPM and its work on boycott within the broader work around the world. Something historical, a historical campaign is going on around the world. It's called BDS, Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions. A lot of times, especially in the last year, a lot of the media was very much focusing on that there might be another intifada, and there's a lot of anger around the world, and focusing more on how the political groups are working. But there was a very, very important movement, a grassroots movement, which started from Palestine, which was uniting all Palestinians around the world to call for three things: boycotting Israel, major organizations taking their investment out of Palestine, divestment, and imposing sanctions on Israel. So how did this start? And why was this important? In May 2009, there was a very important conference by IPAC. The executive director, Howard Kor, he understood how BDS is really, really changing how Israel is working. And he warned that BDS was reaching the American mainstream and laying the predicate for abandonment of Israel. So he realized that BDS, the boycotting, imposing sanctions, he was saying this is a conscious campaign to shift policy, to transform the war, to transform the way Israel is treated by its friends, to a state that deserves not our support, but our contempt, not our protection, but pressure to change its essential nature. And this is what BDS was doing. It was changing the essential nature of what Israel is about. So how was BDS started? It's basically rooted in decades of civil resistance to Zionism, especially after the colonialism. Of resistance to the Zionist settler colonialism as well. The Palestinian civil society started BDS, and it launched it on the 9th of July 2005. What was very important about BDS, why am I saying that it changed the course of the discourse, how people see the Palestinian conflict? Because it did something very important. It was exposing the West. And it was showing how the West has double standards, and how it was treating Israel with exceptionalism. That the whole world could turn a blind eye to Israel's impunity. And BDS was the way against that. BDS reached its highest call when, do you remember in 2009 there was the International Court of Justice, and it issued a historical decision on the wall, on the apartheid wall. And for the first time in history, it actually recognized that this wall is against international law and recommended for it to be moved. The whole West ignored. There was like a plan to ignore this call. And from this point on, BDS was no longer just a Palestinian call. It went around the world. And this is the actual birth of BDS. So why is BDS so tractable? Why is it working so very well? Because it has a rights-based approach. Rights-based approach means that it doesn't say, this is the solution that we have to follow, or we have to do this. It's saying that there is a right, there is a case of justice. and it really exposes how the Western collusion happens, or how the